In the shadows of Europe's past, a fear spread as virulent as the plagues that ravaged its lands. It was an era where whispers carried the weight of a death sentence, and the word witch was a chilling indictment. This fear was not a disease of the body, but rather a malady of the mind, a hysteria that gripped entire communities, turning neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend. The witch trials of Europe remain one of the most disturbing chapters in our history. Between the 15th and 18th centuries, tens of thousands of men and women were accused, tried and often executed for the supposed crime of witchcraft. Their only fault? Being different or misunderstood, or simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. Imagine, if you will, a world steeped in superstition and fear, where a bad harvest, a sudden illness, or an unexpected death could be blamed on an innocent scapegoat. Imagine living in constant fear of accusation, where a single whisper could lead to a public trial, and a trial could lead to a horrific death at the stake. But what sparked this widespread hysteria? What caused sane, ordinary people to turn on their own with such ferocity? The answers lie in a complex web of social, economic, and religious factors that created the perfect storm for a witch hunt. From personal vendettas to community fears, from religious fervor to political manipulation, the witch trials were a tragic manifestation of humanity's darkest tendencies. Yet amidst the darkness there were glimmers of resistance, men and women who dared to challenge the hysteria, to question the accusations, to stand up for the innocent. Their stories remind us that even in the face of overwhelming fear, the human spirit can shine with courage and compassion. This is the story of an era when fear overshadowed reason, and accusations of witchcraft could doom the innocent. It is a journey into the heart of darkness, and a testament to the enduring light of humanity. So let us step back into the shadows of the past and uncover the chilling tale of the witch trials of Europe. Who were the accused, and what ignited the flames of hysteria across Europe? These are questions that have haunted historians for centuries. The witch trials were not isolated incidents, but a widespread contagion of fear and suspicion that swept across the continent from the 15th to the 18th century. In the heart of Europe, whispers of witchcraft echoed through the narrow cobblestone streets. The accused were largely women, often singled out for their unconventional behavior or for simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The elderly, the poor, the marginalized, they bore the brunt of these unfounded accusations. But what sparked this rampant fear? Historians point to a complex web of social, economic, and religious factors. Crop failures, outbreaks of disease, political unrest, all these were often blamed on supposed witches, providing a convenient scapegoat for communities in crisis. The church played a significant role too, stoking the fires of suspicion with tales of demonic pacts and unholy rites. The infamous witch hunter's manual, the Malleus Maleficarum, published in the late 15th century, fueled the hysteria, providing a blueprint for the identification, prosecution, and execution of witches. And yet, amidst this climate of fear, there were those who dared to question the prevailing narrative. Courageous voices of reason emerged, challenging the trials and advocating for the rights of the accused. Their efforts, however, were often drowned in the deafening clamor for retribution. As the witch trials spread like wildfire, the very fabric of society was torn apart. Neighbors turned on neighbors, families were ripped apart, and communities lived in a constant state of dread. The hysteria was, in many ways, more devastating than any purported witch's curse. Dive into the heart of the witch trials, from the infamous proceedings at Salem to the lesser-known but equally tragic cases across Europe. Join us as we unravel the threads of this dark chapter in history, shedding light on the forces that sparked the witch trials and the heroes who dared to challenge them. Behind every trial was a story of personal vendettas, community fears, and the tragic fate of those caught in the crossfire. Picture this: a small village, a tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone. Life is simple, but it's also fragile. One bad harvest, one sudden illness, and the balance is tipped. Fear and uncertainty start to creep in, and then the whispers begin. At the heart of these trials were ordinary people, like you and me. They had families, jobs, dreams, and fears. But when the finger of suspicion pointed their way, their lives were turned upside down. Accusations of witchcraft were often based on flimsy evidence or unfounded rumors. A misinterpreted comment, an unexpected calamity, or even an old grudge could land someone in the dock, facing terrifying charges. These trials were not just about witchcraft. They were about control and power. They were about stoking fear to manipulate people. And they were about settling scores. The witch trials became a convenient tool for those with a vendetta or a desire to consolidate their power. The accused were often the marginalized and the vulnerable, easy targets in a climate of fear. But let's not forget that within this darkness, there were glimmers of resistance. There were those who dared to question, who dared to doubt. There were the brave few who stood up to the hysteria and demanded justice. These were the men and women who dared to challenge the status quo, risking their own safety to protect their neighbors. Consider the case of Johann Weyer, a physician in the 16th century, who argued that those accused of witchcraft were more likely suffering from mental illness. His writings sparked debates, and slowly, attitudes began to change. Or Anna Coldings, who, despite being accused herself, fought tirelessly for the rights of the accused, becoming a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Meet the men and women who stood against the tide of hysteria, challenging the trials and fighting for justice. They remind us that even in our darkest moments, there is always room for courage, compassion, and truth. Amidst the darkness, there were also stories of resistance and resilience. The human cost of the witch trials was not just measured in lives lost, but in the courage shown by those who stood accused. Imagine, if you will, the story of Katharina Kepler, the mother of renowned astronomer Johannes Kepler. Accused of witchcraft in the early 17th century, Katharina was held in a dank, dark prison for over a year. Yet, despite the harsh conditions and the grim threat of execution, she refused to admit to a crime she did not commit. Her son, Johannes, took up her defense, and after a grueling 6-year-long trial, Katharina was finally acquitted. Or consider the tale of Walpurga Hausmannin, a midwife from the German city of Dillingen. Accused of witchcraft in the late 16th century, Walpurga faced horrific torture but refused to confess until the pressure became unbearable. Even in her confession, she maintained her dignity, crafting a narrative that challenged the very idea of witchcraft. These are but 2 examples from a sea of stories, each one a testament to the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship. Each victim, each accused, carried their own tale of resistance and resilience, their own personal struggle against a society gripped by fear and superstition. But the human cost extended beyond the accused. It reached into the hearts and minds of those left behind, the children orphaned, the communities torn apart, the families forever marred by suspicion and betrayal. It was a price paid not in gold or silver, but in the currency of human suffering and societal disruption. The witch trials of Europe are a haunting reminder of the dangers of hysteria and the importance of safeguarding against the shadows of fear and prejudice that still lurk in the human heart. They serve as a stark warning from history about the consequences of allowing fear and ignorance to override reason and justice. And they remind us of the extraordinary strength of ordinary people who, when faced with the worst of humanity, found within themselves the best. As we gaze upon the same stars under which hundreds were unjustly condemned, we are reminded of the enduring need for empathy, understanding, and the courage to stand for truth. We find ourselves transported back to the era of the witch trials, an era that still echoes in the stone and wood of memorials scattered across Europe. These silent sentinels bear witness to the past, each one a poignant testament to the lives lost and the lessons learned. In places like Scotland, Germany, and France, you'll find monuments that capture the essence of the times. Some are grand, others humble, but all carry the heavy weight of history. They serve as stark reminders of the hysteria that once gripped these lands, a hysteria born of fear and ignorance that consumed communities and tore apart families. Yet these memorials also speak of resilience and redemption. They remind us of the individuals who stood against the tide of fear, who questioned the status quo and dared to seek the truth. They honor the memory of those who paid the ultimate price for their defiance, their names forever etched in stone as symbols of courage and conviction. As we reflect on the witch trials, it's not just the horror and the heartbreak we remember, but the human spirit that refused to be broken. We remember the stories of resistance, of men and women who fought for justice and reason in a time of chaos and confusion. We remember the lessons they taught us, lessons about the power of fear, the importance of critical thinking, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. These historical sites offer us a chance to connect with our past, to understand the depth of our shared human experience, and to carry these lessons forward into our present and future. They stand as powerful reminders of our capacity for both cruelty and compassion, of the shadows and the light within us all. As we gaze upon the same stars under which hundreds were unjustly condemned, we are reminded of the enduring need for empathy, understanding, and the courage to stand for truth.